Good evening, everyone. Welcome so much to our TBT, our Talking About Thursdays. And today's topic is very special, very important. We're going to talk about Indigenous literature and the environment. My name is Fabielle Cruz. I am one of the teachers here at Centro Universitário Internacional Uninter. We already have plenty of people here with us on our chat. We have Bárbara, Jean, Rafael, Andy, Diogo, Teacher Teca. We have so many people here. Good evening, everyone in our chat. And I have here a panel of stars to talk to us today. I'm very, very happy to have you here. We have here Amber Bear. She is um, a great person for us to meet today to talk a little bit about these traditions. I was able to meet her through the Global Ambassadors Program here at Centro Universitário Internacional Uninter. We also have my great friend, Patrícia Rodrigues-Niu, with whom I had the great opportunity to work at the University of Notre Dame. And we also have Professor Dr. Jess Barber, that's coming from us straight from University, First Nations University, all the way in Canada, right? So it's a great evening for all of us. So thank you so much for the opportunity to have you here, for the opportunity to hear a little bit about you. So I would like to start with Amber. Amber, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you have to do with this topic?
Sure. So I'm zooming in from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and that's right in Treaty 6 territory. I am from Lac La Ronge Indian Band, and I'm Cree. So I am attending First Nations University, and I actually just completed the Summer Institute there. And so at that same time, I joined up with Jason and the Global Ambassadors and um, learned a lot from First Nations University during that time. Um, so the Summer Institute is a Indigenous journalism and communications arts program, and we learned how to create written stories, articles for newspapers, online um, releases as well. And we did some radio and also TV um, pieces, clips. So, these last 8 weeks has been actually really nice. We're learning about putting out Indigenous content and really trying to promote that and revitalization of our local languages. And so that was my biggest takeaway.
That's amazing. The importance of local languages. Some of our students have already studied it a little bit, and we have talked to them as well about this, how important it is, especially because we have a great number of languages becoming extinct, right? Because of this. So, plenty of languages, they are actually disappearing, and we are losing this. We try to emphasize to our students every time. We are losing not only a language but all the culture associated to it, right? So I think it's a very important project you have going.
Hmm. No, it was really great. I didn't know what to expect. I'm probably not the most traditional First Nations person you might find out there. I left the reserve about when I was 6 years old, and my parents went to get their education, and they had to go to the city. So, Stanley Mission was a reserve of about 800 people, and we're in Prince Albert, so there's about 10,000 people. So the city's like that was back then. Now it's about 40,000 here in Prince Albert. But I believe for you guys, that would, some of these places are tiny compared to Brazil and the populations there. So, no, I think it's different just growing up in these situations, being in some smaller communities, and yeah. having the access to internet is just amazing. If you can have that with sharing of content, um, that definitely helps. I'm in the city because I was scared. I'm supposed to be at the trap line or my cabin building it. But the
Yeah.
internet was so bad out there, and I was like, I gotta get here. So, gotta get to Brazil.
Yes.
The web. uh,
But I love this perspective, like we have, and Patricia's going to talk a little bit about this as well when she talks about her project. But we do have so many communities, indigenous communities here in Brazil, that actually are in very remote places as well, in very small, communities. And it is important for us to emphasize exactly that. How can we help preserve their culture? How is their culture related to the environment, to the idea of preserving nature, saving nature, and all that, right? How does that relate to you, to your upbringing, for example?
well, I did grow up off the land. Like, I think for myself, I used to tell the story about being able to drink out of puddles because there weren't very many vehicles on the roads. So, you learn how to pucker up and get close to the top and never swish it around. But you wouldn't do that now. But, like, I am a mature student. I'm 39. And so back then there weren't very many vehicles, and it was very slow, like, that way. But I think times are different now, and we have such a different environment compared to what it was before. And so we have a lot more vehicles on the water, and I think we're watching it more closely now. We're maintaining, um, I guess, measures to protect the environment.
Yeah. And this is one of the matters that for our students is important, right? We try to bring the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN for our students. And the one that we are working with them right now, it's life on land, right? So for us, it's important to bring the idea that we can learn from these communities, not only from the indigenous communities, but from every community around the world, something regarding the environment, something regarding nature itself, how can we protect, how to become more sustainable, right?
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
one of the greatest ideas we have.
And it's our food, like, we still harvest the fruits, and we get our meat from the land still. We hunt, and so we just have to maintain that balance.
I think that's a key word, balance. I think it's such a great keyword because we had the opportunity to read with the students a poem from Quechua, right? So it's from the indigenous communities in Peru. And it's very, very, it's such a great part that they bring this idea of balance. So they still depend on everything that nature gives us. And they, like you said, they hunt, they harvest, but they still have this respect, this idea of, okay, I have to be grateful for what land is giving us, for what Mother Nature, in their case, Pachamama, is giving us, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Wimber. That's such a great introduction for us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Patricia, I'm gonna go to you now, Pachi. Can you tell us and the students a little bit about you, about your research?
Well, so I did prepare very little presentation um, on my project. So in the presentation, I just like pick parts from other presentations and put them together. And it
Okay.
already talks a little bit of my research with the Wausha. So I work with the Wausha people in the Xingu indigenous territory, southern Amazonia. Um, So in my presentation, I will already talk a little bit about the research I do. I'm like personally like about me personally. I'm Brazilian, half Brazilian, half Portuguese. Luso brasileira. And I study at the University of Notre Dame. And I do anthropology. Actually, my background is in archaeology, but now I'm doing more of a like linguistic anthropology.
Which is something we love because we love linguistic here. So I think you can start your presentation, Pat. You can tell them a
Yeah.
little bit. Yes.
Okay, so I don't really know how long we have, but just cut me off, really, because
Sure,
I'm
no
just going to
problem.
be talking about it. I could talk forever, of course. Everyone can always talk forever about their own research, right?
That's true.
Okay, so it's the first time I'm doing this, so let me see if I get it right. Oof, I have to upload. Ah, have to upload something?
You
Okay.
go on share. Did you find it?
Yeah, I think I have it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, it's too big. I think we're not going to have any presentation after all. Share screen. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
there you go.
Well, window. No. Um, is it here? I'm so sorry, guys.
That's okay. That happens.
Yeah, it's not here. I'll just scare this. Yeah, I'll just do it like this. Okay, can you watch this? Are you
There you
seeing
go.
it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, but this is wrong. Okay. So yes, so here's so these are the Walsha. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they're very famous for their production of ceramics. And also for being kind of like guardians of traditional celebrations and arts and crafts in the Xingu, right? And these ceramics are particularly known for the ceramics, which are a kind of ceramics which is produced for millennia now. So it's a really old kind of ceramic production. And again, since I'm an archaeologist, that also interests me, right? So this is a Xingu. I just brought this to show you. The Walsha live right here in this corner. This is southern Amazonia. So this is one of the most kind of endangered areas. So you can see here like the red area and the yellow one are really endangered by fire and deforestation, and so they are quite right here at the border with all this happening, right? So okay, this is the Xingu here for who doesn't know it well. Okay, so I started working with the Walsha about like 10 years ago, and it was I started working with them as an archaeologist because of this sacred site they have, which is located outside of the indigenous formally demarcated territory. So, so their sacred site was left outside the demarcated area, right? And was in 61, and they've been fighting to protect these sites since then, like for decades, right? So one of the most sacred sites is a cave with engravings, right? And there's other sacred sites here. The Sangihengo is another one who was left outside the territory. So my project relates to their fight to protect these places. So this is a slide just showing deforestation. This is the sacred area here with the cave, and this the red here shows again fires happening. This is a waterfall just next to the cave, so it's a really beautiful place. So these are some photographs of expeditions we do to kind of map out the sites, the ethno-historical sites, and narratives which are associated with it. So these sites are also kind of endangered by roads that are projected, like new developmental projects and stuff like that. And so, yeah, they are basically they are up against real real money, let's say. Right, they're trying to protect their sacred sites, but there's a lot of interest in the area to develop and build stuff there, right? So much so that recently in 2018, their sacred cave was defaced. So you can see here, someone went there and damaged a lot of it. So
Pachi, did
that,
they like scratch it?
yes, so they just defaced, right? So
Uh-huh.
they took out like part of the stone, the rock, right? So that was really it was tragedy. It was like very, very sad. And so after that, we've been not after that actually we've been working on these projects for many years now. So some of the things they're doing to kind of protect the memory and the story of these sites and engravings are, and they're producing a book. They're doing a virtual reconstitution of the engravings that were lost based on old photographs and memory. And so, for instance, we have this project which is really cool, for the virtual reality of the cave that was defaced. And so when this is all done, they're gonna be able to click on the engravings and then have, you know, all the other things that are associated, like narrative and yes, images and stuff like that. How do I I don't know how to come out of it. Those,
That's actually amazing, Pachi, because it's so like important to find. They found a way, or I mean, you, and all
no,
this work. They okay. So
they
they found a way to work around this.
um yeah, so it's definitely they, because my work, I'm basically I help out, like to get fundings for these projects. I even help to write the projects, but they do most of the work of the actual research, documentation of the narratives of the stories, right? So my role is more like an assistant, I guess, and an observer, right? Which brings us now to my own research, right? And this research basically is like, I brought this precisely to show, to talk about the link between indigenous literature and ecology, and how this is so broad from a non-indigenous perspective, for us to understand how the complexity of these connections. It is truly amazing, right? So I started as an archaeologist concerned about heritage and old stuff, and also concerned about the environment, right? Because archaeology connects very, very closely to, if you want to preserve the site, you kind of have to preserve the forest around the site and all that. And it was a big journey for me to kind of come from there to a place that I myself question what archaeological remains actually signify, right? what are they evidence of, right? So the Wausha, they have their own understanding, their own perception about what their those archaeological evidence, like the cave, the engravings, the ceramics in the floor, the archaeological sites around it, what they mean, what they they are evidence of, right? So that led me to question how our own Western understandings of time and space kind of constrict the way we perceive archaeological heritage, right? We, they have the their narrative understanding of these sites. So the stories they have around surrounding these sites, they are not necessarily constructed within a linear time frame, right? So we know that um, some call it mythical narratives. I prefer just to call them historical narratives from indigenous people in Brazil. They don't necessarily abide to a linear time, right? So how does that then informs the way they perceive these old things buried in the floor, right? And that for me was really interesting, right? So I've been pursuing this kind of question of how these cultural conceptions of time and space, and especially narrative means of representing those concepts, how do they contribute to indigenous people's relation to archaeology? How do they do archaeology, right? So that's my project, right? So I've been using tools from different fields to kind of get around this question. Um, and again, I just put a bunch of slides here because I thought they were cute. So sorry for that.
Pachi, we have
But
a
again,
question here on the
yeah,
chat, sorry. The
sure,
students are
please.
asking, what is the village
Mm.
in the sky that you showed in the picture?
Oh, great question. So, can I go? I'm trying to come back. No. Okay. So the village in the sky here, this here is a representation. This is one of the images. Thank you for the questions. This is because I didn't prepare the presentation, so it's really good for me if you do questions. So this is one of the drawings they did for the book they are producing about that the stories that tell the narratives that tell the stories of these sites. So they're trying to tell the story to show how important these sites are and why we should be preserving these sites rather than destroying them to just build a world, right? So this is one of the drawings, and here the village here on Earth is the cave. So this main house here is it was transformed into stone by one of their gods, right? So it used to be a house like the ones you see in the image next to it, made of straw, but then it was transformed into stone. It became this cave, but this cave has an opening. Until this day, it still has this opening in the ceiling, in its ceiling, and this opening is said to be the way that the Kamukwaka people, who are the ancestors of the Wausha, got in. They got up into the sky. So they fled this god that were kind of after them. And they fled to the sky, and they went to visit the bird village, the village of the bird people, and the village of the jaguar people in the sky. So the sky it looks like just like Earth, but is inhabited by non-human people, which
That
are
is
also
just
animals.
that's just amazing, Pachi. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's so many things. And I mean, this is something that is close to us, let's say like that, as Brazilians, it's in our territory.
Mhm.
And honestly, I
Yeah,
think this is the first time I'm hearing more about it. So
yeah,
this is such a great discussion.
yeah. And the interesting thing is that so these villages in the sky, they kind of represent the non-linear time. So they belong to a time outside of time, right? So they they don't necessarily so these people are remain always it's the same thing. That is the main reason of being of ritual in Xingu. And perhaps my colleagues here will be able to talk much better about it for other people. But for at least like for what I understand in Xingu, the point of performing rituals is that you're reenacting um, a situation, let's say, right? You're updating it, you're reactualizing it, you're making it real again, right? So that's just like the stories, the narratives they tell. Every time they tell the story, they are kind of reenacting it, they are reactualizing it, right? So it's the connection to the sky. The sky is the time, this beyond time itself. It's the
Mm.
non-linear time. It's the time that keeps happening, keeps repeating itself, right? So the earth, and then you see again the village in here in the ground. This belongs to the human time, the time that is linear, the time that grows, that changes, that, right? And so there's a connection there that which is made between earth and the sky, the linear and the non-linear time, which happens precisely at these archaeological sites. Which right, it should be like that, because you have it's there. The stuff are they are old, but they are also present. They are in the past but also in the present. So it's a archaeology is a form on thinking archaeologically is a form of non-linear thinking, right?
This is just
uh,
inspiring, Pachi. Honestly, it's such an amazing, an amazing
oh,
perspective.
it's
And
their perspective, honestly.
yeah,
I'm just I just wish that I'm able to articulate and translate what I can grasp of the complexity of this, because since I've been working with the Walsha, it's just like it just blows my mind every time I have a discussion, a conversation, and I'm always changing my understanding of what they actually mean by that, right? So I'm just trying to grasp the significance of all this. So it's a lot, it is, honestly. And I'm
yes.
if I can translate it well, I'll be glad, honestly.
Yes, and you did. Actually, most of our students are really amazed on our chat. They are really surprised with this. And I think it's nice for us to mention that linguistically speaking, there are some communities indigenous communities in Brazil that actually they don't really have verb tenses. What they do is structure their sentences in way
Hmm.
that they are always talking about the present. So they don't have a concept that there is a past and that there is a future. They only understand the concept of what is now. So it's this blows my mind as well, but I have to say this is
I'm
just
actually writing a
surprising.
paper on that. I'm precisely like I've been writing a paper on that, and it's called the tenseless languages. And they are in fact we've trying to change the concept of being tenseless or like lacking something into having something. And in fact what they have is that they are aspectual languages, right? So
Mhm.
so they have clear clear understanding and clear ability to articulate the complexities of a past participle, or I don't know how do I say this in English. Now you must help me, like a perfect participio perfeito, né? All the different verb tenses that we have, they have the same ability to articulate all this complexity within the sentences and within the narratives, but they do it always with aspect, which is this is the amazing part. The aspect is what the event in relation to the context of speech, right? So you basically, what you're doing is you're transporting the listener to the narrated event. You're transporting the person which is listening you narrating a story to the inside of the context that is being narrated, right? There's a lot of linguistic anthropological analysis of that. There's even a paper, amazing paper, The Eye of Discourse, which is when indigenous people are narrated, and instead of using the indirect speech, he said, whatever, they perform the speech and they use the I, as if they were the character they are narrating, right? So they are transporting themselves and the listener to the context of narration,
To the
right?
event. That's amazing.
Yeah. So again, literature and okay, last bridge here, environment, right? so
Yes.
so right. So where was okay? The bridge here, everything is about the environment, but the main thing is that these characters that exist in in their historical narratives, they are still there. They are just in a different plane of existence. So it's
Mhm.
not like our past, which we have like our heroes, whatever, the kings and whatever from the past, and we're like, oh, they're our heroes, but they don't exist anymore. Then they have this linguistic and even like narrative way of the representing, reenacting, reliving the past, but they also have this different conception of time, this different conception of ontology, of how things exist in the world. The Wausha, they do clearly state that these characters from the story, they exist there now. We just cannot simply we simply cannot see them. Some people can, shamans can, etc., right? Other people's cannot, but we accept that they are there, right? So okay, so that brings us to the fact that that is why the land is not even ours. It's definitely not ours, non-indigenous, that historically is not ours, but it's not even theirs. They are they are they are safeguarding the land for these other owners, the true owners who live there. They are invisible, but they are there. And they are responsible for the life on earth, right? So if you go to someone's house and you destroy that people's house, you're going to make that people very, very mad. And that's what non-indigenous don't understand, that they just want to build a road on top of a cave because they think the cave is old and doesn't matter. No, the cave is inhabited. It is presently a territory. The indigenous entities live there now. They are invisible, but they are there, right? And they are responsible for the river, the fish, the forest. And once they get mad, they will go away to the sky and they will not come back. And then we are all screwed. Sorry, my language. Because there will be no more fish, no more flowers, no more animals. So that's the connection we make between the sky and the earth. Once the connection is severed, life on earth will no longer be regenerated.
That's just amazing, Pachi. My goodness, I had no idea really whatsoever about it. So when you finish this paper, or if you have some suggestions for our students to take a look at this
Mm-hmm.
tenseless languages or other researchers, please share it with us because we
Mm-hmm.
would
Sure.
love to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we know a little bit about the Brazilian perspective with Pachi, and then Amber shared a little bit about her, Professor Barber, now on to you. Tell us a little bit about Canada now.
Hi, yes, thank you. Thank you, Amber and Patricia. That was fascinating research you're doing, Patricia. And yeah, I look forward to learning more about it. And Amber, hi there. It's good to see you again. My name's Jesse, and I'm originally from Regina in Saskatchewan. And I teach at First Nations University of Canada. And my father's side is Cree and Métis from around this area. And my mother's side, my mother comes from Scottish and German settlers and farmers. Um, and so Amber mentioned she's from Prince Albert, and which is close to Regina. I'll just share my screen here to show you. Let's see if there is how I do that.
I think that Pachi needs to stop sharing her screen so
Oh
that
my
you can
gosh.
start sharing yours.
Sorry.
No problem.
Sorry. So,
That's okay. There you go.
yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to, okay, a window. Oh, I should have looked at this earlier.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Let's see if we can, I'm not sure if this works. If it doesn't, I'll just talk.
Yeah, if you go share screen, then you have the option share screen. Usually it opens what you can share, and then it pops up here for me.
Okay, I see. Okay, it says I can't, I have to open preferences or something like that. But let's just try the entire screen. Oh no, I can't share my screen. Okay. So maybe I'll worry about that later. Okay. Anyways, so I'm from, I teach at First Nations University, and I'm from the Regina area. And I just wanted to talk about the theme, the connection to the land and the environment and literature. One of my main areas is I teach Indigenous literatures, and I focus mainly on Saskatchewan Indigenous literatures, and in particular Cree oral traditions. And just a bit about, even place names. The city I'm from is called Regina, and that's a word that means queen. It's from the Latin, and it was named after Queen Victoria, or the Queen City. And of course, that was a colonial renaming of the area. The original name for the area is a Cree word, Oskanika Sestige, which translates as the place where the bones are gathered. And yeah, there you go.
There you go. I shared my screen here.
Excellent. Yeah, so you can see Regina there in the middle.
Yeah.
So
So
we
part
have,
that the students usually know it's this side, right? Or
yeah.
Vancouver, but yeah, they are here, guys. Okay.
Yeah, so you can see, if you zoom in, you can see Regina there, and then Saskatoon. Oh, yeah, there's Regina, and then you see Saskatoon there, and then if you go further north, you see Prince
Here?
Albert. Yeah, and that's where Amber is. And she's from a community, Stanley Mission, even farther north than that. And First Nations University, we have campuses at the three cities, Regina, Saskatoon, and Prince Albert. And if you wanted to, you could even just, if you wanted to Google First Nations University and then show an image, just to give the students yeah. Can you go to Google Images?
Yes, sure.
Oh, or you can see, yeah, there you go. So that's our building there. And it's in the shape of a teepee. And it's, I think when it was founded, it was the first Indigenous run post-secondary institution in Canada, if not the world at the time, in the late 1970s. And so it's something we're very proud of. It's all focused on Indigenous learning. Yeah. And Saskatchewan itself, that name means it flows swiftly. And it's named after the river. There's a great river that flows through the province called the Saskatchewan River. So when you think about the name, it's not just like being from Regina, Saskatchewan. The Indigenous sense of it is more like the place where the bones are gathered in the land where the river flows swiftly, right? So the Indigenous name is much more provocative of the environmental landscape than what you hear in the English, right? Other things we do. So I noticed that like on the case study, there was some poems that were in the Indigenous language and then translated to English or Spanish, or maybe it's Portuguese.
Portuguese, yes.
Yeah. And so I kind of wanted to look at that, show you that. Professor Fabi, if you could Google Cree Literacy Network. And so this is a resource for the students. So for the Cree language, the Cree are a large cultural group in Canada. We call in Canada, we call Indigenous groups First Nations, right? The First Nations peoples. And then there's many different groups, and Cree being a big one. And if you can go in that search icon at the top there, that little magnifying glass, and search Sweetgrass Cree.
Sorry, didn't understand.
Search for it, Sweetgrass Cree.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then that will bring to Bloomfield. So you can see, so there's lots of, yeah, if you click that one, and then you can see we have the stories. So these are sacred stories, and they're from our area, and they're in the original Cree language. And these are part of the Cree oral tradition, which dates back hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And then we have, part of what we do is we study the old texts in the Cree language and then translate them into English, or vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you, so I won't get into this one. This one is the birth of Wisagichuk and the origin of mankind. So this is the Cree origin story. And Wisagichuk, that word there, you see the birth of Wisagichuk. Wisagichuk's kind of like the culture hero for the Cree people. He's the intermediary between humans and the Great Spirit, right? So extremely significant and important to Cree cultures. And so check that out. And then if you want to do another search.
Sure.
Well, no, on that same page.
Okay.
Yeah. Language Day poem. And this will get us to an example of what you guys have on your case study.
There you go.
Yeah, there, National Indigenous Peoples Language Day. Okay. And if you want to scroll, so here you can find all these resources. So here you have in the Cree, that's Cree there in standard Roman orthography. And then beside it are the syllabics. So that's the Cree writing system, and we call it syllabics. And then you have the English translation below that. So, just to read a bit, it's aski kitota pimagonau, yutin kitota ye higono. Okay, I won't keep reading, but you have the idea there. And this is the idea of that the earth nourishes us. Wind gives us air to breathe. And I'll read the next line. Iskote kitotas giso winagono. Fire gives us warmth. Nipe kitota minigwe no. Water quenches our thirst. Kipisk we winawa. Kipisk we winanawa. So our languages. Kitotayo ge winanawa. Our sacred stories. And that word there in the middle, so this is the second word in the second stanza, Arayo ge win. That means both sacred story and spirit. And in that sense, in the Cree story tradition, story is not just about spirit. Story is spirit, right?
That's amazing. An amazing concept that they are like one thing, one and the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And it's with like all our knowledge of the land, of course, comes from being on the land, but it's interpreted through stories, right? That's why stories are so central. And then ki wagomita ninawa, pardon me. So that's our kinship system, and that's our relations. And of course, wagamitano, it's not just about our relations with each other as humans, but our relations with all beings and things, our relations with the animals, the land, and the spirits as well. So it's that web of kinship, and that this illustration at the top, a beautiful rendition by Carly Fellner, kind of gives a visual image for that kinship net web, right? Yeah. And then ki mama winito winanawa, which if you can scroll back down for the English. Thank you. Our communities, and then Kagio uhi kitota ta pimhagono. All these things nourish us. And Kagio ki pimatsa higono. They all give us life. So, yeah, it's a beautiful poem and a sacred song, right? So I hope you enjoy that, and that kind of goes with the other texts that you've been looking at as well.
For sure. Actually, many students are saying like they are really surprised. They actually thanked us. I posted the link for this for them on our chat, and probably they're gonna check it out. But people are saying here like it's so impressive that they allowed us to know the transliteration of their words, right? This is amazing. This is a great
Absolutely,
project.
yeah. And so that's the area I'm in. I have a PhD in English, specializing in Indigenous literatures. But I did all the English, British authors, American authors, Shakespeare and Chaucer and all that. But being from where I am and my own heritage, I focus more and more on the Indigenous writings, and then even moving from Indigenous literatures in English to actual Indigenous literatures, right, in the Indigenous languages. And so that's so important. And then that connects with, as well, with Amber's work in Indigenous journalism. Amber mentioned the Summer Institute. It's funny because the Indigenous journalism program at our college, it's called Indigenous Communications Arts, or INCA for short. So we call it INCA. And there's some great work that's been done in terms of language revitalization. And Amber probably worked on some of this. So if we could bring up another website, and it's called Pikiskweywin. So it's spelled Pikiskweywin. And that's the Cree word for language, right? Pikiskweywin.
Just a second, because now my computer is trying to think about what it's doing. So while it loads here, this website that you just showed us, it's amazing. And I think the students are going to benefit a lot, taking a look at it.
Absolutely, and it's always updated as well. I think almost daily, if not very frequently. So there's always new things coming out. There's I see on the front page, current page of the website, there's Buffy St. Marie. There's a link to her interview with Tom Power, and Buffy's one of our great cultural artists and heroes. So if you want to know about Indigenous music, like popular music, like in the pop rock area, Buffy is one of the legends, right? So you can YouTube her or Spotify or whatever.
That's actually really, really good. That's really, really amazing. I mean, the students should be able to, take a look at all this. This is amazing.
Yeah, and well, are we still waiting for it to load?
Yes, I am still waiting for it to load.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I can keep talking while we're waiting for it to load. So one of the things is that language, the website that we're waiting for, it's called Pikiskweywin, and it's an Indigenous radio podcast website. And so there's all kinds of podcasts that are being frequently updated on that website. And I did a podcast on there about the Cree star poems. So, stars like the constellations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole subset of the oral tradition that's about the origin of the constellations and how it reflects our place on the land and the cosmos. And so that's one of my current areas of research. But I thought I'd also talk about the relation between the Cree language and the environment as well. And it's a poem, or it's part of a series of poems that I've been working on myself, and which has to do with language revitalization. And I was inspired to write this poem when I learned about the Cree word for love. And I learned about it in a Cree language class I was taking with Solomon Rat, who's one of our great Cree language professors, who's from Stanley Mission, I think the same community as Amber. The Cree word for love is Sagahewewin, or Sagaheo, which is the verb for he or she loves someone. And, well, Sagahewewin is the noun. And one of the cool things about the Cree concept of love is that it puts the other first, right? So in English, when we say, I love you, I is the subject, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas in Cree, it's phrased more like it's to conjugate it would be ki sagahitin, and that ki word is the pronoun for you, right? So in Cree, in English, it would translate more like you are loved by me, right? So in that sense, it's built right into the language that it privileges the second person, right? Or the you rather than
The
being
one who receives the love.
That's right. Yeah. So the one who receives is the subject rather than the object, right? And so you kind of have that intersubjectivity built right into the grammar of the language
Is
itself.
it this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's loaded.
Yeah. So you can explore this website as well. And, if you scroll around or if you click on that the illustration at the top or podcast, or if you scroll down episodes, there you go. Yeah, language spirit is strong, and so you can hear podcasts in Indigenous languages, and it's not just Cree. This is meant for all Indigenous languages across Canada and potentially around the world.
That's amazing.
Mm. Yeah, and so there's lots. Yeah, and if you just keep scrolling, these are the ones that are just most recently up. Oh, there's me, Cree Star Stories.
There you go.
Yeah. So we won't listen to this, but if you're interested, and on this podcast, I do talk about that idea of love, right? So you have that in there, and then as well, the Cree word for love, sagaheu. So that first syllable, right? S-A-K, it's S long A and a K, sak. That root is also connected with a whole cluster of other words, right? And for example, that same root is in the Cree word sagagan, which means to grow forth or to emerge from the ground in the way that plants and flowers grow, right? And then that same root is also found in the Cree word sagapagao, which means it is budding, right? In the sense of when tree buds blossom in the spring. So, if you look at those root connections or the etymology between, sagaheu, sagagin, sagapagao, it embodies that Cree philosophy of love, right? In the sense that when you love, or when you are loved, right, a new sense of life flourishes or emerges from within you, right?
That's just beautiful. I mean, it's amazing, the idea that it has this feeling of nourishment, actually, love as nourishment.
Absolutely, right? And that you flourish at your most beautiful when you are being loved or when you are in love, right?
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, right. And so you can see how those, when you talk about how a culture's philosophy or worldview is embedded in the language, right? There's a clear example of how it's embedded right in the very grammatical structure of the language itself, right? Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So exactly, that's another idea, and so there's a lot of great ways to connect that with the environment and our perspectives and relations to it. Yeah.
Oh, and that's just amazing, it's really, really amazing. But Professor, one thing that I wanted to ask you, because I know, or Amber, if you guys can mention a little bit to our students, this is something that the students may not know, but there is this land acknowledgement that usually Canada universities and other places they do, right? Can you tell us this? Can you tell the students what is the idea of this land acknowledgement? Because the first time I saw it, for me, it was just like so interesting and so beautiful, because I remembered I studied at Queen's University in Kingston in 2014, and I had the opportunity to talk to one of the teachers there, one of the professors there. And we were discussing exactly that, what our countries have done to our Indigenous communities. So she told me a little bit about First Nations, and we discussed about Brazilian Indigenous communities too. And the idea of the land acknowledgement for me, it's just like, wow. Can you tell the students a little bit about it? Either one of you, just for the students to know a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, Amber, are you pointing at me or? Okay. Yeah. So the land acknowledgement, I mean, that started, I don't know, like 10, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Started, I mean, it's always been important, but it really came into currency with, settler scholars or settler descendants in the past 10 years or so. And it's been a way, to because we're in an era of what's called the Truth and Reconciliation era, where our governments and institutions are attempting to find some kind of acknowledgement of the historical wrongs, right? And it's really complicated subject because sometimes the way it's gone about is really, it's criticized a lot as just a way, a kind of self-serving measure for the colonial governments, to kind of, justify the history and then move on, right? Like, oh, we're sorry, and then, move on. So it's really tricky, and the land acknowledgement is sometimes criticized like for that as well. But it is important because, at the very least, it does raise that awareness, right? And so usually in Canada, the land acknowledgement is very local to the territory that we're in. So Amber mentioned that she's in Prince Albert, and that's what's called Treaty 6 territory, and I'm in Treaty 4 territory, right? So there's all these. That part of the history is what's called the numbered treaties, and that was where the land was um, supposed to be like, again, the idea of the treaty was that we're here to share the land, right? But then, of course, those treaties promises were broken very early on, and it led to decades and decades of oppression and racism, and a very difficult conflict in our history. But in any case, we tend to say, like, the land acknowledgement that I might give would be something like, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Something like that is very straightforward. And then Amber's would be a little different, right? Because it would include probably Dene, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, and it wouldn't include the Lakota, because
It wouldn't include them, no.
Yeah, so we tend to include like the nations that are within that territory in any case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like, how many? I don't know. There's over 50, at least. I don't even like, or is there something like 80? Yeah, there's over 80 First Nations, different cultural groups across Canada. Like Brazil, Canada is a big geographic country, right? With an
Yes, that's true.
incredible range of diversity, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So usually, though, it's settler scholars who give land acknowledgement. Is that kind of your experience, Amber? Like, often Indigenous people don't really do the land acknowledgement, but it's more kind of implicit in what they're doing. Would you agree, Amber? Or
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I see it in a lot of institutions, schools, um, and yeah, pretty much anything with the government, stuff like that. Then back home, like if I go to a small community function in Stanley Mission, we never say we're on our own homeland.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's really amazing. I mean, so many things we could spend maybe the whole night talking here. But thank you guys so much for your, for your input, for your thoughts, to talk a little bit to us about your researches. I'm pretty sure the students will have many questions later on. Maybe I can forward them to you as well for you to, try to help us a little bit. But I would like once again to thank so much the First Nations University, because with them we were able to have Amber and Professor Barber here with us. I also want to thank my very good friend Patrícia with the baby. And I would like to thank all the students that are here with us. Thank you all so much for sharing this moment, for sharing your thoughts, for sharing your inputs with us. It was really good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, we hope to have you again sometime soon. Maybe we can have another chat with the students about this topic, because we could, go on and on and on forever, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is wonderful. And keep up the great work, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have many people here saying it was a great time together. They hope to hear it again sometime. They're saying that they're gonna definitely read the suggestions that were pointed out. So many interesting here comments as well. So they talked about the cave that Patricia showed us, the beautiful building. So many beautiful things. So thank you once again, all of you, so much for being here with us. And we hope to have you again sometimes. And students, if you have doubts, if you have still questions, okay, forward them to us and we can send it to our participants tonight. So thank you so much, and we wish you all a great night.
Thank you, everyone. It was really
Thank
great
you.
to hear all of you.